Hey all, welcome to Cracking the Fang interviews. Today we'll be talking about compensation across the tech industry. This is primarily for engineering roles. A lot of the data that I'm going to showcase today is coming from open source websites like levels.fyi, and I encourage you guys to check them out. So, starting with the grades that we have in the industry, the first one is the entry level engineer. These are folks with which have 1 to 2 years of experience typically. They could also be new grads or people having little to no industry experience. The responsibilities are to develop and maintain low to moderately complex components working on a team, and they typically receive guidance and support from more experienced members. The next grade is engineer 2, and this is folks between 2 to 5 years of experience. They develop and own moderately complex projects, and they could also be leading a small team or a project. The key ability here is to be able to mentor younger engineers, fresh people who come in right out of college, provide technical guidance, do code reviews, design reviews, and also deliver on projects end to end. At many companies, this is also considered a career level where you could spend the rest of your career operating at this level without being pushed out for not being promoted. And then the next one is senior engineer. Again, these are progressively next grades. This is between 5 to 10 years of experience. At other companies, you could also call this lead engineer role. These are typically less than 30% of the employees in a company, and they are expected to lead and own complex technical initiatives. They also contribute to setting the vision and future directions of the team. The impact could be across different teams within the organization. So we are more focused within the organization for this role, and the role shifts more towards design rather than writing lines of code. And that typically depends on the size of your team, the number of folks you have on the team, and the responsibilities and projects at hand. Next up is staff engineer. These are people with 10 plus years of experience. This level is much more coveted than the previous one. Typically, less than 10% of the employees in a company are at this level. And if I were to draw a diagram to represent this, we'd start with the entry level here. We'd have our layers. We are somewhere over here with the staff engineers. Yeah, just to give a perspective of the proportion of these. And they're usually interested with business critical projects and for setting technical vision of the org or even multiple orgs. The role depends highly on organizational and company needs, and it's very different depending on the company you interview or work at. But the most importantly, they are expected to operate fully autonomously and also help break down things for younger engineers, the other roles we talked about earlier. And last but not the least is the principal engineers. These are people with 15 plus years of experience or even more. And a lot of companies have different stratas. An example would be they have principal engineers, then an architect, another level, called senior architect, and going to a fellow after that. But the key message here is they are less than 3% of the population within the company. And the impact spans now across the company and sometimes even the industry. They are contributing ideas through conferences and publications. Again, they are expected to operate fully autonomously. They are actually feeding insight into top level management as well at times. Here I have sort of a block breakdown for different levels at different companies, where each box sort of represents one of the levels we talked about earlier. As you can see, an L3 at Google compares to a E3 at Facebook, and so on. You can look up the levels, but the general idea is it's very close to what we talked about earlier. And we talked about a senior engineer. Here, there's another level added, like a staff, senior staff, and then principal. So it's more how companies structure themselves for efficiency and fairness. And moving on, now let's look at the compensation for each of these levels that I described. I'll start with the entry level and then move on to the senior roles like engineer, senior, staff, and principal. For entry level engineers, the range is between 195 to 230K, as you can see. And these are the different companies that sort of operate in that range. As you can tell, Lyft, Airbnb, LinkedIn, DoorDash are amongst the few. Again, all of this data is coming from levels.fyi. I encourage you guys to look up online, and there are a lot more resources you can check out. And for engineer 2, as we discussed, the range is between 260K to 295, more towards 300, getting close to 300. And just a quick note, when I say total compensation, it means the total compensation, and it could encompass the base pay, the stocks, and also bonuses. And bonus can be, cash bonus, sign-on bonus, or a performance bonus, depending on the company. But the total amount you get is the amount we are looking at here. And now moving on to senior engineer, the range is between 400 to 461. Again, LinkedIn, Netflix, Pinterest are among the top few. I encourage you guys to check them out. And moving on from here, staff engineers, the range is between 493 to higher 500s, more towards 600. As I said, these are very few in the organization. Again, the pyramid structure we looked at earlier. We're somewhere here right now. And again, last but not the least, the principal engineers. This could be, for as discussed, further divided into principal engineer and architect, senior architect, and that is why this is a very big range, starting from 525, going all the way to 895, 900, and even above in some cases. Thank you so much for watching our video at Cracking the Fang Interviews. We hope you liked it, and please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. See you in the next one.